Welcome to the Deep Dive, where we cut through the noise to bring you insights from some, well, often unexpected corners of the global economy. Today, we're plunging into a market you might not have thought much about, maybe never even heard of, but it's actually vital for the food we eat. We're talking about the global grain washing machines market. Now, I know grain washing machines, it sounds maybe a bit niche, right?
It does initially.
But yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. These are industrial machines built to clean grains. Think wheat, rice, corn. They get rid of, dirt, dust, stones, even tiny insects.
Absolutely critical. It's a foundational step for food safety and quality before those grains become, well, anything else you eat.
Exactly. And we've got some really detailed market research today, official data from Cognitive Market Research to guide us. Our mission, as always, is to pull out the key nuggets for you. We'll look at global performance, regional trends, and the growth path for this market. We have data from 2021, estimates for 2025, and projections right out to 2033.
And what's really fascinating here, I think, is how this seemingly small piece of the puzzle, grain washing, actually supports so much of our global food supply chain and, importantly, the quality standards we expect. It's a key part of agricultural processing. And it's definitely not standing still. The market value was $189.64 million back in 2021.
Okay.
But it's projected to climb pretty significantly, reaching $1,973 million by 2033. That works out to a compound annual growth rate, or CAGR, of 5.072% over that period.
Right, 5.072% CAGR. Let's maybe just quickly unpack that for you. Essentially, it means the market's expected to grow, on average, just over 5% each year for about a decade. So this isn't just some blip, it's sustained growth. The question is, how do these numbers, this steady increase for, what seems like specific equipment, actually impact things in the real world? Whether you're interested in ag tech, global trade, or maybe just curious about where your food comes from, understanding this market is, well, it's a bit of a shortcut to grasping a really crucial part of the modern food system.
Yeah.
So let's start with that bigger global picture. It's not just growth, it's consistent demand we're seeing.
Exactly. It's not a flash in the pan, as you said. It's a steady upward trend for the whole market. And just to recap those key global numbers again, starting at $1,589.64 million in 2021, projected to hit $1,328.1 million by 2025, and then that big jump to $1,973 million by 2033, that 5.072% CAGR, is pretty robust for this kind of industrial equipment market, which, it does raise an interesting question. What's actually driving such consistent growth worldwide? For something as basic, maybe, as cleaning grain, it points to some pretty fundamental shifts.
Like what?
Well, shifts in how we process grain, how we consume it globally. There's definitely a bigger focus now on efficiency, hygiene, and meeting tougher international food safety standards.
Right. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay, this is where I think it gets really interesting. We're going to move beyond just the global total now and see how different regions are contributing, how they're benefiting. Because it's definitely not the same story everywhere, is it?
Yeah.
The regional differences are quite stark.
Absolutely. Let's break it down region by region. We'll look at the market sizes, the growth rates, the CGRs, to see where the real action is, where the potential lies. We're looking for those growth hotspots.
The powerhouse of growth.
Okay, first up, Asia Pacific. This region is, well, it's clearly the powerhouse here. It had a really strong base already in 2021, leading the market with $433.676 million. That's a huge chunk.
A very large slice, yes. And it's set to grow quite dramatically from there. The projection for 2033 is $812.284 million.
Yeah.
A regional CAGR of 5.455%. Now, China has the largest market value within the region. It goes from about $131 million in 2021 up to roughly $237 million by 2033. Steady growth.
Okay.
But what really jumps out is India. India's growth rate is projected to be exceptionally high, 6.236% CAGR.
Wow.
Yeah, starting from around $61 million in 2021 and heading towards $122 million by 2033. We also see strong growth in other parts, like Singapore has a CAGR near 6%, and Southeast Asia collectively is also showing a healthy 5.8% growth rate.
That is quite a jump for India, outpacing the regional average and China's rate.
Yeah.
So what do you think makes India such a significant growth driver here? There must be some specific reasons for that kind of acceleration.
Oh, definitely. India's rapid growth reflects a few key things happening together.
Yeah.
You've got a growing middle class demanding higher quality, more processed foods. That's one part.
Right.
And then you've got a big push from the government and industry to really upgrade agricultural infrastructure, partly to meet global standards for exports. As India plays a bigger role in supplying food globally, The need for efficient, high-quality grain processing, starting with proper cleaning, just becomes essential.
Yeah.
It's modernization meeting huge demand, both at home and abroad.
Modernization meeting demand. Got
A
it.
dominant but steady force.
Okay, let's shift gears. North America, also a huge contributor, right? Started at $312.726 million back in 2021. It's a more mature market, perhaps, but still growing.
That's right. Mature, yes, but definitely still evolving. North America is projected to grow to $536.458 million by 2033.
Yeah.
The CAGR there is a solid 4.465%. The U.S. naturally dominates in sheer size. It goes from about $255 million in 2021 to a projected $429 million by 2033.
Yeah.
But interestingly, Canada actually shows a slightly higher growth rate, a CAGR of 5.525%, compared to the U.S.'s 4.247%. Mexico is also showing decent growth around 5.1%.
Huh. So Canada growing a bit faster than the U.S., percentage-wise. What does that tell us about a more established market like North America? It suggests maybe some different things are happening within the region, even with advanced infrastructure already in place.
It does suggest some nuances. In mature markets like North America, growth often comes less from, first-time adoption and more from modernization and replacement cycles.
Yeah.
Canada's slightly higher rate might reflect ongoing investments, maybe upgrading older facilities to meet new efficiency goals, or perhaps expanding into niche grain processing for specialized markets.
Okay.
The U.S., while dominant, might be seeing more incremental upgrades because its operations are already, generally speaking, very sophisticated. So it's more about maintaining and refining an already strong system.
Diverse pockets of activity.
Right. Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic now to Europe, a continent with, incredibly varied economies and farming practices. It accounted for $205.942 million in 2021.
Yes, and Europe's projected to reach $356.915 million by 2033, which is a 4.582% pre-bar CAGR overall for the region. But what's really striking in Europe is the diversity within the continent. You see quite different growth rates.
How so?
Well, you've got France showing healthy growth, a 5.414% CAGR. Italy's steady at nearly 5%, but you contrast that with Spain, which is growing more moderately at about 3.5%, and Denmark, which is lower still, around 1.8% CAGR.
Interesting range.
It is, and crucially, the category labeled Rest of Europe. So countries outside the biggest named ones, that segment is actually leading the entire region in growth, with a CAGR of 5.804%.
Wow, okay, so growth isn't just concentrated in the giants like Germany or France.
Exactly. It suggests pretty widespread adoption and expansion happening across many other European nations, too. Germany, the UK, Russia, they all contribute, but at different paces, really showing that broad range.
That's a really fascinating patchwork. It makes you wonder, what are the factors driving such different speeds within one continent?
Well, it's likely a mix. Different national agricultural policies play a role, for sure. Varying levels of investment in modernizing the food processing sector. Evolving food standards, both within the EU and for export markets. For instance, countries really focused on exporting agricultural goods might be investing more heavily in things like grain washing to meet those international standards. Others might have different priorities.
And the strong Rest of Europe growth.
That points to maybe smaller but numerous markets all sort of catching up or continuously upgrading their processing capabilities. It's not just the big players.
Surging potential.
Okay, let's pivot now to South America. You mentioned potential hotspots, and this region seems to be showing some really strong surging growth. Started from $75.185 million in 2021.
The numbers for South America are definitely compelling, yeah.
Yeah.
We're looking at it basically doubling, reaching $148.567 million by 2033. That's an impressive regional CGR of 6.016%.
Over 6%, okay.
And within that, Argentina is even stronger. Its CAGR is projected at 6.533%. Starting small, around $10 million in 2021, but projected to more than double to over $21 million. Brazil is also a major contributor, of course, with a solid 5.6% CAGR. And again, interestingly, the rest of South America category leads the whole region with a 6.359% CAGR. So broad-based growth there, too.
That level of growth, especially Argentina and the rest of South America, is really noticeable. What's pushing this expansion in a region already known for massive agricultural output?
It seems to be a couple of key drivers working together. First, there's a big push towards more value-added processing, especially for export. Countries like Argentina and Brazil are huge global grain suppliers.
Right.
So to compete effectively, the quality and cleanliness of that grain really matters. That means investing in better processing, including washing. Second, You've got growing domestic demand within South America itself. More people in cities want processed foods, and that requires higher standards for the raw grain going in. That combination really fuels the need for this kind of technology.
Steady but moderate expansion.
Okay, turning now to the Middle East. A smaller market overall, valued at $41.406 million in 2021.
That's right. It's projected to grow to $65.109 million by 2033. The CAGR here is more moderate, 3.65%. Within the region, Saudi Arabia has the largest market size currently. But what's notable is that the UAE actually shows a stronger growth rate, a CAGR of 4.771% compared to Saudi Arabia's 3.334%. Other countries like Turkey, Egypt, Qatar, they also contribute to the regional growth, but again, at slightly different rates.
So for you listening, it's worth thinking about the unique context here. The Middle East faces specific agricultural challenges, like water scarcity, but also has a huge focus on food security. How might those factors shape the demand for grain washing?
That's a great point. Given the challenges, especially water scarcity and often a reliance on imported grains, efficiency is key. For countries processing imported grain or those trying hard to boost their own domestic agriculture, effective grain washing is vital for food security. It ensures the quality of what might be quite precious raw materials.
And the UAE's higher growth.
That could reflect its strategic position and investments. The UAE has been focusing heavily on becoming a regional hub for food processing and logistics, adopting advanced technologies to enhance food security. That likely includes upgrading things like grain cleaning capabilities.
The fastest growing frontier.
And finally, Africa. We hinted at this, and the data really backs it up. This continent is showing the fastest regional growth in the whole market.
It really is remarkable. Africa started from the smallest base, just $20.703 million in 2021.
Tiny, yeah.
But it's projected to more than double, reaching $53.666 million by 2033. That represents an incredible CAGR of 8.786% for the continent overall.
Wow, nearly 9% growth per year.
Exactly. And get this, within Africa, the rest of Africa segment, so beyond the specifically named countries, is leading with an absolutely astounding 9.153% CAGR.
Goodness.
We also see very strong growth from Nigeria, around 8.5%, and South Africa, also around 8.4%. These are exceptional figures. They really signal some profound changes underway.
Yeah, if you connect this to the bigger picture stuff, agricultural development, boosting food security, improving food processing, generally, these numbers in Africa aren't just impressive, they feel really fundamental, don't they? What's driving this explosive growth?
It signals a massive effort, really, across many parts of the continent to modernize the agricultural value chain. Many African nations are actively moving away from purely traditional methods, partly to cut down on post-harvest losses, which have historically been very high.
Right.
So by investing in technologies like grain washing machines, they're tackling several issues at once. Improving food security for their own populations, raising the quality of grains for potential export markets, and just generally becoming more efficient. It's a foundational shift in how grain is handled after the harvest, bringing it all together. Why this matters to you.
Okay, wow. So we've covered a lot of ground there. We went from the global totals down into specific countries and looked at those really interesting regional growth stories. So let's bring it back. What does all this mean for you, the listener? Why should this market matter?
Well, the consistent demand, the growing use of these machines everywhere we looked, it really reflects some bigger, crucial trends happening worldwide. You've got the increasing global population, simply more people to feed. You've got rising demand for processed foods, which always need cleaner, higher quality ingredients. And as we dug up, there's just a much bigger emphasis now on food safety and quality standards pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
So this growth, this move towards more grain washing, it signifies a global shift towards more efficient, more hygienic, and ultimately safer grain processing. And that directly impacts the food system that feeds all of us.
Exactly. These aren't just abstract statistics. They represent real progress in agricultural technology, in infrastructure. And that has knock-on effects for supply chains, for trade, and ultimately for the quality and safety of the food that ends up on our plates, wherever we are in the world. It's a basic but vital step towards better, safer food for everyone.
And just to summarize that key takeaway from the Cognitive Market Research Report, this global grain washing machines market is definitely expanding everywhere. We saw strong performance in Asia Pacific and South America, and that really exceptional standout growth projected for Africa, that consistent rise in global sales revenue, heading towards nearly $2 billion by 2033. It just clearly reflects strong, ongoing demand. It highlights how increasingly important these machines are becoming in our global food system.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for joining us on this deep dive into what, yeah, might seem like a quiet corner of the economy, but clearly has huge significance. And maybe for a final thought, consider this. What kind of ripple effects could this continued rapid growth in grain washing have? Think about maybe reducing food waste globally or improving health standards, or even how it might spur further ag tech development, especially in those regions like Africa that are growing the fastest. It's a market with definitely more layers than you might first think, and its quiet growth tells a big story about our changing world.